Nilsson, and today I have a special guest whose name is Robert Goodwin, and I believe he is an author and he is a trance medium. Is that right, Robert?
Well, hello, Ingrid. It's yes, that is absolutely right. I've written several books, a couple of my own works, and several featuring the philosophy and the teachings of my guide White Feather, along with my wife Amanda. And yes, I've been a medium for over 50 years. So I'm delighted to be here having this chat with you, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for accepting it. How did your journey begin? Where did it start?
Well, it goes back to when I was about 17, and that's a long time ago now. But I was an only child. I had a happy upbringing, but I always felt a loner. I was always happy with my own company. But around about the age of 17, at the onset of puberty and that, I started getting a lot of feelings that I wanted to do something to serve in some way to help the world. I know that sounds quite a grandiose thing to say, but that's what I was feeling. But I didn't know how to go about it. I knew nothing about mediumship, had no desire to work as a medium or to speak in public. But what I did do was start to meditate. And I used to go in the front room at my parents' house, put a little bit of quiet music on, and just simply sit there and meditate in the dark. And I started noticing or sensing that there was someone or something standing very close to me. I didn't see who it was. I felt it was a person or an entity, and it was very warm, a warmth, a loving feeling. And at times it felt as though there was a warm blanket of energy just surrounding me and going completely over me. That was all I knew. It was a pleasant feeling. I got a lot of comfort from it. But around the same time as this, I was also a very nervous person. I'd always been nervous all my life. I was a hypochondriac, used to worry about all sorts of illnesses and I'd got this wrong with me and that wrong with me and whatever. And through a series of synchronicities, I was invited to go for healing. And this came about by the fact that my grandmother, who lived only around the corner, had been writing to the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary. And through one way or another, she was put in touch with a healer who was in Canada. And this chap, this man was coming over to the UK on business. He was also a policeman, would you believe? He worked for the Canadian Mounted Police. His name was Colin Turner, but he did healing as a separate thing. He did that in his spare time. So while he was over on business, he said to my grandmother, I'll pop round and see you and give you some healing. And it was suggested that I go round as well to have some healing for my nervous situation, which I did, much against my better judgment, because I was all anxious and worried that he would tell me that there was something seriously wrong with me. And this is how my mind thought at the time. But I met this chap. He was a big guy. I mean, I'm 6'2" now. He was about 6'4", and he put me at ease immediately. And he sat me down in the chair and he said, I'm just going to put my hands on your shoulders, Robert, and just put some healing through you. And this he did, and it was the most phenomenal experience I've ever had. I came out of my body, and the healing really, was so powerful, and it changed my life, because I knew from that moment that there was something else. I knew there was something else, and it seemed to tie in with what my experiences had been in sitting on my own in meditation. I knew I had to find out what it was. And so I started going to a spiritualist church nearby. And every week I would get messages from different mediums giving me evidence of those in the afterlife. And eventually these messages turned into messages that were directing me to sit in a development group. I had no idea what a development group was until one day a chap came up from the back of the church and he said, "I've been listening to these messages, Robert," he said, "that you've been getting week in and week out. I'd like you to sit in my development group." So I thought, well, I'll give it a go, and that's where it all started. And from that moment, I started in earnest my true spiritual development. I didn't join the group thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be a trance medium." Never entered my head, but that was the way. It turned out.
Mm. I have listened a little bit on YouTube of White Feather, and when he came the first time, did you feel any? Was it comfortable, or when he comes through, or was it not comfortable? How do you think, or how did you feel?
Yeah, well, it was several months of sitting in the development circle before Spirit, found a way of starting to draw close to me to work in trance. And White Feather wasn't the first person that came through. I must have been sitting for a sort of 9 or 10 months, perhaps a little longer, and I'd been getting this build-up of energy and wanting to speak, but I didn't know how or how to go about it. And the one evening, I remember clearly sitting in the group. There was about 8 or 9 of us in the group. We were sitting under a dim light, a red light, and I had this tremendous urge to say something. So I stood up, and this voice came through me, and it was the voice of a farmer. He only said a few words. It wasn't particularly brilliant philosophy or anything like that. It was just more or less along the lines of, "Hello, I'm here to work. We're going to develop this instrument," something like that. And then the circle leader responded to him, and that was it. I sat down, and that was the breakthrough. So after that, White Feather began to link with me. I can't recall the first time he spoke through me, but there was certainly no fear, no unpleasantness, no angst, no concern. I've only ever been met with absolute love from White Feather. I've never felt any need to worry or be fearful in any way. And that has just grown and grown over the years as he's sort of developed a closer link with me, if that makes sense.
What is the main purpose of him coming? Has he any, what kind of messages does he want to?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's two. His work is teaching and philosophy. He has told me he's part of a spiritual group, one of many, and he refers to that group as the White Brotherhood. And his work has always been in bringing philosophy, bringing wisdom, bringing guidance to raise human understanding and raise human vibrations. That's purely his work. He doesn't give evidential messages. He doesn't give clairvoyance. He doesn't give that sort of message. I do work as a clairvoyant and clairsentient, but I have a different guide or different group of guides that work with me, and I don't work in trance when I do that.
No.
I have worked on the spiritualist platform for 50 years, and I do that, give messages to people in the audience. But White Feather's work is purely teaching and bringing wisdom through. That's his work.
Mm. Whereabouts do you work? And
well, I'm primarily because I live in the UK, I work primarily in the UK. I have done all over the UK. I've also worked in Denmark a few times, and I've worked in Ireland. I've been down to the Arthur Findlay College near London, which is world famous. I've demonstrated there. And I do some online work, with the current situation with lockdowns and what's going on in the world. It's an opportunity to work in that way and reach more people. I seem to be making a lot of inroads into new areas, particularly into the USA and places like that. And going back to the Denmark thing, there's quite a story attached to that, because we'd published several books, and I had an email one day out of the blue from a Danish gentleman called Jos. And he said, "I've read your books. He said, I'd love to come over to the UK and have a one-to-one with White Feather." So we thought about it for a while, and we didn't know who he was. He just contacted us out of the blue. So my wife and I agreed to him coming over, and he flew over from Copenhagen on a Saturday afternoon, and on the Saturday evening we had a sitting with him with White Feather, and he recorded it, and he liked very much what was said, and he left us, went back on the Sunday. We thought, well, we've done our work, we won't hear from him again. And within a week, he said, "I'd love you to come out to Denmark." He said, "because I think they would enjoy listening to White Feather." So we did that, and we stayed at his summer house. And he also said, "Look, I want to support you in your work, and I also want to publish one of your books in Danish," which he did. So we went out there 3 or 4 times and worked, and it was a very enjoyable experience. The Danish people were very, very welcoming, very kind to us, very generous, and very open-minded.
They are.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I've never been to your beautiful country, Sweden,
No.
but I do like the energies of that part of the world. Sweden, Norway. I've been to Norway a couple of times, and Denmark, and I find generally the people, with a few exceptions, generally the people are quite open-minded and open-hearted. They welcome you, which we love that. We love that.
Yeah. I believe that Denmark may be a little bit more open, but it's my opinion. But we're coming along here.
Yeah,
I think, yes.
that's
And
good.
I believe that maybe the whole world is opening up.
Well, it's interesting to hear you say that, Ingrid, because there's 2 levels of energy going on in the world at the moment. Below the surface, I think there's a great awakening, spiritual awakening. People are becoming more aware of spiritual understanding, of other dimensions, of other ways of looking at things, and that seems to be growing exponentially. There's people waking up, particularly, I don't know what it's like in Sweden at the moment, but certainly in the UK, there's a lot of evidence of people waking up. And on the other hand, you've got all of these draconian measures that are being put in place by governments, taking away personal freedoms and doing all kinds of things. And it's as though the 2 are going on at the same time. I mean, I could go into that a lot more, but perhaps now isn't the appropriate to do that, But yeah, there's certainly people are waking up without a doubt.
I was thinking when I haven't listened so much, but some videos of White Feather, you can hear because you have your own voice when you speak.
Yeah.
But you can hear that his vocabulary, how do you pronounce that?
Vocabulary, yeah.
Yeah, it's different. So
Yeah. I mean, when you mentioned Elaine Thorpe earlier, now with Elaine, she's a female in this life, but her guide speaks with a very male voice, and there's quite a distinctive change. With White Feather, it's not quite as distinctive, but it is noticeable. And as you say, most noticeable in the eloquence, in the vocabulary that he uses, and there is seldom any hesitation, any pause in his speaking, because the words seem to flow through me, his word, and he does use words that and phrases that I would never use.
No.
So the other thing as well with that, Ingrid, is that I've said all along that a good marker for anyone who's watching a trance medium and who's sitting there listening to them or observing them, a good test, if you like, as to whether that trance medium is genuine, should be that the guide demonstrates a greater knowledge and wisdom and eloquence than the medium. But most importantly, when that guide is asked a question, the answer should be there straight away. And you find this with White Feather, there's no pause, no hesitation. The answer comes straight away. He doesn't have to go away and think about it or ask someone on his side of life. The answer is there. And that I think is a good measure of true genuine trance mediumship.
Yes, because it would be difficult to remembering all these phrases with difficult words, and for those who are skeptic, I don't think it's so easy to pretend to be a trance medium.
Absolutely. I mean, I often say to people, being a trance medium, in fact, being a medium in general, whether you're a trance medium or not, but just being a medium, you have to work spontaneously in the moment. And you can't, it's like an actor going on stage without a script, without any words. You have to work in the moment. You can't prepare. The only preparation you can do is to get your mind in the right state and relax and try and get into the zone, if you like. But certainly with the question and answer part of the sessions that White Feather does, we have no prior knowledge, and he has no prior knowledge of any questions that are asked. And he insists on this. We used to do demonstrations where we would invite people who were shy, who didn't want to put their hand up and ask a question. My wife would say beforehand, if you're too shy to ask a question, write it down on a piece of paper, hand it to me, and I'll ask the guide for you. But we've since stopped doing that because White Feather has said that he likes to have the voice vibration of the person that's asking the question.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always the skeptic who will say, well, Robert's had a look at the question that was written down, so we can't have any accusations of cheating. It's got to be in the moment.
Yes, it's sad for those who cheat, because they destroy for so many others who put a lot of work and effort into this, and then they cheat. I think that's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. Yeah. And more so with the advent of the internet, and Facebook and that, and it's sometimes people are accused of looking up information about someone before they do a reading or whatever, and it's something that you have to be mindful of. It's just a way of things at the moment. It's just the way. Information is everywhere. If you can find information on people, but you as a medium, you have to have integrity. Whether it's a trance medium or any kind of medium, you have to have the integrity not to fall into that trap.
Really, it's important. I listened to another video you did 5 years ago, And I think you were speaking, or White Feather was speaking about the new time that was to come.
Mm.
I think, isn't it that time that is coming now?
Absolutely, yeah. That was me speaking. I think it's. I don't know which one you're referring to. I
Oh,
did a.
you had your eyes closed, and maybe it was you, but you had your eyes closed. I think it
Well,
was.
it was probably White Feather then. If I had my eyes closed, yeah,
Yeah.
it was. Yeah, I mean, I can look back at some of the communications we've had from White Feather, going back at least 5 years, but in some instances a lot further back, that were prophesized. He prophesied what is happening now, and I was talking to someone quite recently, and I got the book. We did a book called Answers for an Inquiring Mind, and there's a couple of pages there with several paragraphs about what is happening right now, and it's there in print. I mean, that book was published, I don't know, probably 15 years ago, maybe a bit longer, and it's there in black and white. There's no disputing it. And actually, Ingrid, this is a very important point that you've raised here, because when I started developing quite early on, and I'm going back over 45 years ago here. I'm showing my age now. I had a communication from White Feather, which I recorded on. In those days, it was a cassette player, cassette tape, and I recorded it and played it back and typed it up. And I kept that. Manuscript for many years, and I've lost it now, unfortunately. But he said, now, so remember, this is going back to probably late 1970s, early 1980s. He said to me that there would be a time on the earth when something would occur from which no one could escape, that it would be everywhere, and we would have to deal with it. Now, back in those days, the main threat was perceived to be nuclear war, and the tension between the West and the East, between Russia and America. And I thought at the time, at some point there's going to be a nuclear war, but it isn't. It's what's going on now with this introduction of all these Orwellian controls and what's coming in and where they plan to take the human race, connected to artificial intelligence. That is the real threat. And I think White Feather was trying to, or did foresee that, and was trying to warn us going back all that time. And of course, there have been others. I mean, there's been some amazing mediums around, people like Edgar Casey, Alice Bailey, one or two others who have given prophecies that have come to pass. But the positive thing, Ingrid, the positive thing is that, and this is a mainstay of White Feather's teachings, is that we have the answers within ourselves. Light is stronger than darkness. Light is greater than darkness. And we have the strength and the answers within ourselves, because we are infinite consciousness. We are the Great Spirit. We're not separate from that. We are that. And we've only forgotten that. And if we remember our true nature of who we are and what we are, then all things are possible. And we have to, I think, reconnect with that knowledge.
Well, I hope that science go together with this, because we have to get the scientists with us.
Yeah, I mean, again, White Feather said several years ago that science and spirituality would come closer together. And that has been the way in many ways. I know, people rely on science these days. Science is the new God. People, everything that science says, it's the truth. We've got to follow the science and follow the data. That's the mantra. Scientists aren't always right. There's two camps in scientists. There's the mainstream scientists, and then there's the ones that are more free thinking, particularly quantum physicists. That they are more open, and I think the quantum physicists are, I think, closer to the spiritual information that we bring. I mean, I'll give you one example. Whitefeather has said more and more recently that consciousness is the foundation of life. Now, you can call consciousness spirit if you want, if you prefer that, but that is the foundation of life, and everything is key to consciousness. Everything emerges within consciousness. So what have quantum physicists found out? They found out that by observing a quantum waveform field, the very act of observation collapses that wave into particles. So consciousness again is helping to, or is key to creating what we perceive as reality. What we think of as a solid world and real world is a product of our consciousness decoding that waveform information and collapsing it into a form that we perceive as solid reality. So again, consciousness is the key to this. And of course, a lot of people these days are held within this 5 sense reality. You know, they can't seem to break out of this bubble of everything has to go through the 5 senses. And mediums and sensitives and empaths and people who are aware aren't confined to this reality. They can think, they're more expansive, they can think beyond it. And that's the awakening, that's the true awakening that is taking place, the remembering and the knowledge of who and what we truly are. And science can play a part in that. It can, you know, we don't have to be at odds. We can work with science, and science can work with us. That's how it was meant to be.
And I think it will be.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, I did an interview myself with a lady called Sandy Edwards, because I do a podcast called the Rob Goodwin podcast, and I interview different mediums and put things from Whitefeather. And Sandy Edwards is a spiritual healer, and she has managed to get a grant from the lottery in the UK, amongst other things, and she's been able to get into hospitals, into mainstream hospitals, and they've allowed her to do a test with healing in hospitals. And I don't know how many people were involved. It was a couple of hundred people. Some were in like a test group, a placebo group, as they call it, and others were genuinely recipients of healing. And they measured the differences between the two. And it was quite remarkable how those who had had spiritual healing responded better to conventional treatment, and their recovery was made quicker and easier because they'd had healing. So yeah, why can't the two work together? You know, why can't they work together? Whitefeather often says that you can heal somebody from the top down or the bottom up. Now, the top down version is from spiritual healing. The bottom up version is from recognized science and medicine. And the two, you know, it's almost like never the two shall meet. Well, why can't they meet? Why can't they meet in the center and work together in a holistic way? That would be the ideal way to go forward, I think.
But in England, I think they're more open for healing in hospitals and so, because here in Sweden we can't do that.
Well, yeah, that's a pity. That's a shame. I don't know about more open in England. I don't know. I mean, I've just given you the example of Sandy, but I think that's few and far between. I think that's more of a rarity. I mean, the fact that the survey she did and the data was very, very conclusive, I said to Sandy, I said, wouldn't it be nice if that could be rolled out to all hospitals? And she said, well, that would be my dream. But as yet, that hasn't happened. I think it's difficult. It's going to be difficult going forward because the medical profession is so close-minded in some ways and so insular. They don't like to think of, outsiders coming in and telling them, what to do or working with them. It's a pity, really. And I think this is the downside of science, in that it sometimes is very inclusive, and if you're not in that camp, if you're not in that little group, then it's hard to get into that. But we'll see. We'll see. She's doing some good work, and others are too. So perhaps the two will come more closely integrated.
But I think for some doctors or scientists, it's difficult to come out if they have want to do this, because they will get freezed out in a way.
Well, yeah, freezed out is one way of putting it. I mean, to come back to the current situation, the pandemic, there have been many doctors who have spoken out about it and what's going on, and hundreds of them have been fired from their jobs or frozen out, as you say. They've been threatened. They've had their livelihoods taken away from them, and you can understand why they would be fearful of speaking out, because they've got families to support, and they've got to put a roof over their head, and why would they speak out if it means losing their income and their job and their livelihood? So a few very brave doctors have spoken out. So there are people out there who have got the courage to speak out, and we need more people like that, I think. Not just with COVID, but with other areas. We need more people to be open-minded and to at least accept the possibility that there is more to this life than the mind and body that we have, that people think is the be-all and end-all. And when the body dies, that's the end of it. If people were more open to it, and this is where mediumship comes in, of course, to give this evidence and to give this proof.
We actually had a doctor here in Sweden that they tried to take his license because he did healing, but not together as a doctor, but beside. But I think he was the only doctor they couldn't take his license.
Yeah. I mean, a brave man, and full, fair play to him. That's what's needed. Yeah, I mean, there are people who are prepared, as I say, to put their head above the parapet and speak out, knowing that they're going to be shot at one way or another. But this is what awakening is all about. First there's a few people. Whitefeather got a lovely phrase that he used, and he's used many times over the years, and he said, the one will become the many, and the many will become the one. And that's so true, because it only takes one person to speak up for others then to have the courage to speak up, and one becomes many, and eventually, before you know it, you've got an overall consensus, an understanding of yes, there is something in this, and what we have to remember, I mean, I don't want to get too political or controversial or anything like that with this, but what we have to remember is that whatever things we are being coerced or led into or forced into is only being done by a relatively few in number, maybe 1 or 2%. We are the 99%. We're the ones who really hold the power in this world. And if we collectively, individually and collectively say, no, this isn't right, we've got another way, then there's nothing that anyone can do, because we're the ones that this is what it's all about, really, regaining your personal power and your knowledge and your realization that you are infinite spirit. That's what you are. You're not someone that is that has got a soul or a spirit. You are that. You know, it's not. There's no separation. We're all one. We're all one. I mean, I could speak for hours on this because I'm a passionate sort of believer in people, you know, standing in their light and their power.
But we are not only here; we have the spirit world too on our side.
We do, yeah, we do. When you say on our side, I think, yeah, I mean, spirit world don't like to talk about sides because we're all one. But if they are on anyone's side, I would say they're on the side of light and the side of truth, rather than this person or that group or that country or that, you know, they're on the side of truth and light. And if you align yourself with that, and if all who are listening to this now, if you align yourselves with that truth and that light, then you are aligning yourselves with a great power, a great love, and with the spirit world. If you go against that and align yourself with anything less, then you're going into lower levels of consciousness and into ignorance, areas of ignorance. And no one's going to force you to do one thing or another. Man takes what meanings please him. You've got free will, but you have to realize that you have to face the consequences of that, not in terms of punishment, but you have to face the consequences of your actions. And if you align yourself, either knowingly or unknowingly, with anything that's lower, then you will face consequences to it, you know. The same as you will if you align yourself with truth and light. The consequences of that are a quickened consciousness and awareness and happiness and freedom. Who doesn't want that? Essentially, we all want to be happy, don't we? That's our main purpose in life. Whatever we do, we want to be happy. We want to be free. We want to be happy, and that's how we are. That's how we were created.
But maybe this is maybe negative, but maybe not everyone wants other people to be happy.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, without a doubt, there are those who operate from a level of ignorance and who seem to take some kind of pleasure in controlling others and manipulating. But if you think into this deeply, even they, deep down, even they want happiness. They may be trying to find that happiness in a distorted way through destroying things and controlling others. That's a distortion of the mind. But even below that, even they want happiness, you know. But they just lost their way, you know. Happiness can only really be found within yourself, and serving the Great Spirit or God, serving others, helping your fellow man, you know, is a great way of increasing your happiness and connecting with what's within yourself. I can't think of a better way than service, really.
I was thinking when I spoke to Elaine Thorpe, her Jonathan, her guide, he's there's this lady also comes through, Sophie, I think. She said that we always should send light to those who do bad things. Always send the light towards them, not hatred, because we will come there as well. Do you understand?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Ingrid. I think it was it Gandhi who said, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. If we do unto others what some of them do unto us, then we're coming down to their level. So we've got to try and keep. White Feather keeps on about this quite a lot recently, about keeping our vibrations and our consciousness raised. But that doesn't mean ignoring what's going on or turning away from it or not facing up to it. what it means is standing in our truth and our light, being courageous, being brave, but nonetheless not resorting to violence or anything like that. Violence is never the answer. It's always got to come from love. Non-cooperation is a wonderful, powerful thing. Again, that Gandhi, used that to great effect. That's a wonderful way of communicating the fact that you're not accepting a particular thing that's being imposed. And non-cooperation is from love, because you're not cooperating with a lower energy, a lower force. And you find that anyone that's trying to get you to do something in line with their agenda will always use force. They will always resort to force, because that's the way they think they can do it. What we have and what aware people have doesn't require force, because they have and we have power. There's a difference between power and force. Power is a natural consequence of enlightenment and awakening, and power far exceeds the negative elements of force. Force requires constant energy to be fed into it. It requires people to follow it and to give it their energy. Power comes from within. It doesn't require anything external. It's from within. People need to differentiate between power and force, in my opinion.
Before we end, I would like to ask you, do you do mediumship as well?
You mean physical mediumship? Yeah.
Yeah, you do that.
I'm not a physical medium. It's a specialist kind of mediumship that you have to sit for development. Having said that, I do get physical phenomena happening around from time to time. I could give you several examples of that. And it's usually, when the spirit will are trying to make me aware of something or warn me about something. But I've had a number, maybe, 25, 30 times where I've had physical phenomena happen around me. All mediums have got energy around them, and spirit world can use that. I'm a mental medium, not a physical medium, but I've still got energy around me. And when they need to, the spirit world can utilize that in a certain way. I'll give you a little example. Before we lived in a house different to where we live now. And in the kitchen of the house, we used to have a little, in your kitchen cupboards, you've got like a kickboard at the bottom. And there was a little gap between the washing machine and the kickboard. So I made a little device which was shaped like a T, like that, and I pushed it in just to fill the gap. I didn't screw it, I didn't fix it, I just pushed it in, so it filled the gap. It was about 6 inches wide. After a while, that started to be pulled out, usually overnight, sometimes between me getting up in the morning and going out to work and my wife getting up. She would often come down to the kitchen, and this piece of wood, this device, had been pulled out into the center of the kitchen. Not only had it been pulled out, it had been turned to an angle. And this used to happen about, on average, every 4 months. Sometimes around the time of a birthday or something like that. And it wasn't just inched out a few inches, it was pulled out maybe 2 foot. So you couldn't miss it. You walk into the kitchen and there was this thing on the floor. And you think, how did that happen? It was purely physical phenomena. And I've had other things like that as well. So yeah.
Is it because they want to say anything, or do they? Why do they do this?
Yeah, I think it was, as I say, we sort of tried to find a pattern to it, and it seemed to link in with anniversaries generally of a birthday or a passing or something like that, as if they were acknowledging it. I'll give you an example different from that. I used to drive a little minibus taking people with dementia into a centre. And I used to park this minibus against a fence so that you couldn't open the doors, the back. And I went on holiday for a few days. And when I came back, I pulled the bus forward, opened the rear doors, and there was some equipment like a cone, traffic cone, and some other things that had been moved from underneath the seat and placed in the center of the bus. There were seats on either side, and there was an area in the bus that was just flooring, and they'd placed it there. I immediately went into the office and I said, "Who's opened the bus in my absence?" No one. It hasn't been touched, hasn't been driven, hasn't been opened. You can't get to the back because the doors are up against the fence, the wall. You can't open them. No one had done that. So it had to have happened in like 2 or 3 days that I was away. Someone from Spirit had done that, and it was shortly after that my mother had a fall. My elderly mother had a fall. Now I think it was a warning because they'd taken out the warning cone and placed it in the. They were trying to say it's a warning of something to come.
Yeah.
So that was remarkable in itself.
So you have to pay attention when things like that happen.
Oh yes, always do. Always do. Yeah. I mean, this is really up to date. What I'm going to say to you now. I had a sleepless night last night because I was woken several times in the night by someone. I don't know. It wasn't White Feather. I don't think. Someone was giving me a phrase. Repeating over and over, and I would drift off to sleep. I'd wake up, and there it was again, just repeating this phrase over and over. And it was, I didn't know the meaning of it. The phrase was, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Now, Caesar was a Roman term. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And I said to my wife, I've got to check this out. So I've been on the internet this morning, check this out. And there's a deep message in it. Now, I know it's religious. I'm not in any way religious. I'm not a Christian. I'm a free thinker. I know it's a religious phrase from the Bible, but there's a great meaning in it. And it relates to when Jesus was tested by the pharaohs who wanted to catch him out, so that whatever answer he gave was the wrong answer. And he had 2 choices, and he actually came up with a 3rd choice. Brilliant, really. And I looked at this and I read this and I thought, wow, I know what this is. I know what this is. I'm not going to say any more. All I would say to people is check it out for yourself and relate it to the current situation that we're in. So that's right up to the minute. So make of that what you will.
I think people, if our dreams, they are telling us all the time, but we have to learn how to understand our dreams because they are like hidden messages.
They are indeed. Not all hidden, though. I've had some direct connections. I get a lot through the dream state, particularly with people who are past. One chap in particular that comes to me regularly was somebody I worked with for 30 years, and I very often sense him. But it's more than just a dream. It's a I can't find the words to describe it, but it's a reality. I can feel him, I can smell him, I can sense him. It's like so real. It's like a 4-dimensional thing. It's impossible to put into words. So I know that, and I have this from several people who have passed on, that connect with me in the dream state. I think it's because when we're in the sleep state, our conscious mind is out of the way, and it doesn't confuse things, and it's easier for them to get their connection and get through what they want to impart to us.
Yeah, I feel empty if I don't remember my dreams.
You do, don't you? And sometimes, you know, you thought, well, I know there was something, you know, I know I was somewhere, or I was flying, or I was with someone, and you just can't. It's frustrating, isn't it? But you do have the odd dream that is crystal clear, and you tend to remember it on waking, and you lose it afterwards. It goes afterwards. But if you can hold it, sometimes it's a good idea to keep a little notepad on the side of the bed and just jot it down.
Yes. Robert, before we end, I always ask, is there anything you would like to share to those who are going to listen? Anything?
Yeah, a couple of things really. Mediumship has always been around. It's a sacred vocation. It requires dedication, discipline, love, and the desire to serve others, serve your fellow man, and to serve the world. Trance mediumship, I believe, is a very high high form of mediumship. I'm not saying we're better than ordinary mediumships or clairvoyants or psychics. We all do our part, but I think trance mediumship has sometimes been overlooked, or not recognized for what it truly is. It's a very highly developed form of mediumship that requires a great connection, an intimate connection with your guide. So if you have the time and dedication to develop that, and you have the potential, I would urge you to do that and work on it, and don't be in a rush. Don't hold, in your mind, I'm going to be a trance medium. Just let it happen. Just let it be, and you'll find the rewards of that are beyond description. But also, going beyond mediumship, we're in very challenging testing times at the moment. We're all struggling at times. We're all going to be tested and challenged. And if we can just remain true to our beliefs, to our understanding, to our knowledge, to our wisdom, if we can remain in our center, in our light, and we can truly remember what we are, infinite consciousness, that all things are possible. We are all powerful, all powerful. And if we can hold true to that, then the world can change, because the world will only change with a shift in consciousness. If we keep doing what we've always done, we'll always have dictators, we'll always have wars, we'll always have famine, we'll always have problems. But if we shift our consciousness and work together as one entity, as one whole, then the world can be transformed. And that is what I believe is underway at the moment. There will be further tests and struggles, but it's underway. And these are really exciting times to live in. Remember this, I'll finish with this, Ingrid. You're not here by accident, by chance. You're here because you chose to be here at this time.
I was thinking about football when you were talking about it. I don't look at football, but I started to think about Manchester United, because you have to be united to come. Do you understand?
Absolutely. Well, that's a wonderful little analogy. Yeah, you have to be united. Yeah,
because we can't be one just in the team.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I follow the England team, and I think we played. Who did we play recently? Was it Denmark or Sweden? Denmark, I think. Yeah. And of course, you follow your team. You support your national team, and we played Italy in the final, and you want England to win, and you want Italy to lose. But at the end of the day, it's a game. And if you look back, Ingrid, if you can take a step back, life is a game as well. It's a dream. Life is a dream, and we're all playing parts. We think we're all individuals, and we're this and we're that, and we've got this label and this we're famous or we're not famous. All these things, these are only roles that we're playing. Beneath that is this wonderful awareness that cannot be touched, cannot be broken, cannot be taken away from, cannot be added to. It just is. It watches everything. It's the screen upon which all life plays out. And we are that. And when we connect with that and get beyond the madness of all these roles that we play, we realize the absolute oneness of everything. And in that lies a tremendous peace, a great bliss, if you like. And that's what we are. And that's available freely at any moment to each one of us.
So I think that we will finish with that wonderful message, so that we can think about that we all are one.
Yeah, I think that'd be a nice place to end. And I thank you very much, Ingrid, for inviting me, to speak. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and thank you for some wonderful questions and for listening also. And I hope that what I've imparted will be a great help to all those who listen to this in the future.
It's all planned before.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and I hope to see you again sometime.
That would be nice. Please keep in touch. Yeah, it's a pleasure. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.